Start with turning. Yeah, so we establish the movement, we establish the exercise, and then we let that support us so that we can just let go with the mind. So the mind just lets go of all the normal things it's holding on to keep yourself together. So that the turning can throw part of you out and draw part of you into a center so it can make a separation. It's the same when we do the form, you know, the form is so familiar, we could do it in our sleep. And so you just get into it and then you can just let go because there's a sense that the form does itself. Yeah, so what I find useful about this one, one of the things is you can really feel the sacroiliacs. So as I turn here, I can feel this holding. So if I can just let that go and just let this leg sort of fall out. So what I don't want is to pull the leg around with the turn. With this feeling that I'm just letting go of the leg at the sacroiliac so that the leg can actually be empty. I'm not clinging onto it with my fullness. And then just feel the front hand. So the front hand is very much coming from the back, coming from the spine. I'm turning myself so that this side of my body can reach forwards. And that's the emptiness, that's the empty side. So your empty side is really stemming from your back. So it has to come round from the spine and then reach forwards. And that happens as you come into the full leg. As I come into the full leg, the empty arm reaches from the spine. And then just feel the other arm. So this arm is pulling into the full leg. So it's like I make a fist loosely. I'm sort of grabbing something and just drawing it down as this hand is opening and reaching forwards. And the fist hand just sneaks around and gently strikes the sacrum or the min-meng. The min-meng is just above the sacrum, one vertebra above. So the min-meng is easy to find because it's basically the small of the back, you know, the real curvature, where your back curves in the furthest. And the sacrum is just a solid piece underneath that. So you're pulling into your sacrum and you're releasing from the spine with the empty hand. So it's just pull and push. Yeah. So roll back effectively. And then just feel the feet doing the same thing. So the toes of this foot that is going to fill are sort of clenching a little bit, like they're trying to grab the ground, and the toes of this foot are really extending like the fingers of this hand. So it's the whole side of your body that's gripping, and it's the whole side of your body that's letting go in order to reach forwards from the back. Okay, now let's just bring it back more into riding horse. So you can think of yourself like an operating computer. Yeah, so the hardware, the computer itself is your body. The software is the program, is your mind that's running. And the electricity that's powering it is your spirit. So which one of those three are we? So when I say me or I, which one of those three do I mean? Now we say I am in my body, so I am not my body. My body is a container for me. But what am I? Yeah, am I the mind, the ego, or am I the power, the electricity that's making the whole, that's animating this body? So basically, spiritual work is just switching your allegiance from the I, the ego, to that energy source that's actually making you go. So just feel, so the container and the contained. Yeah. So when I'm attending to the container, then I have a certain posture. Yeah, so let's just feel that figure of 8 inside the arms, yeah, and inside the hips. So we've just got a gentle figure of 8 going. And just feel it. That will tend to push your sacrum and your mid-back back a little bit. And so the figure of 8, when it moves like this, it tends to curve around like that. Yeah. And we want that because that produces the container. Yeah? So me as this containing cylinder. So my spine is very much at the back of that. Yeah? So it's almost, my spine is behind my space, behind my personal space. And so we tend to think of this as the personal space until someone gets too close behind you, and then you realize you're actually much more sensitive behind than you are in front. Yeah, so this is me, my body. My body is the container of me. I am the content, I am the contained. Yeah, so this is very much sort of the small scale, you and the person in front of you. You know, if you were doing pushing hands, then it would be this sort of posture. You'd be slightly drawing back to create this mutual space. So the figure of 8 is just 2 circles that are touching. So here, so there's 1 circle here and 1 circle here. And I just let my locus just slip across from one to the other. And I want to feel it, you know, all through the body. So it's in the hips, it's here, it's in the head. And let's just try a bit in the legs, just going down the leg and then up here, and then down here and up here. So you've now got a figure of 8 on the vertical plane. But with the two circles side by side rather than one on top of the other. So you're going down the outside of the leg, and then there's something comes up the middle here, and then down this leg. Yeah, so just feel this as I travel like this, that really helps the sacroiliac just open. But you have to just hold the weight back a little bit. Yeah. If you let the weight lead, then you're compressing all the time. You're squashing the joints. And here we want to really just let them open. So I hold my weight back, let the energy flow, and then let my weight go with it. Ooh. Just get used to releasing your energy without moving the body. So it's just like reaching out with the hand. I mean, my hand moves, but my body doesn't. So here, the energy goes out, and then my body is taken with it. Ooh. And it's the spirit that makes that happen. So it's this rah, this sort of real opening explosion inside that directs the energy. Yeah. And then let's just bring it back. Yes, as soon as you get into spirit, then your posture will want to adjust. You'll want to adjust so that this is slightly forward, so that now I'm with the contained rather than with the container. I'm with this energy that's just aching to burst out of the container. So in order for the contained to be content to be contained, the spirit has to really diminish. As soon as your spirit comes up, you've got this feeling you just want to burst out of whatever it is that you're doing, whatever it is that's containing you. Okay, now let's just try. Yeah, so this heart qigong. So this feeling that your heart is like an open vessel. Think of it as like the chrysanthemum that's sort of looking up. And it's infinite. It just pours upwards. It just wants to reach up and explode up. Yeah, so what makes us depressed is the fact that we cap the heart. We put a lid on it. And we put a lid on it because that's what society demands. Yeah. So here, so my upper back is really straightening out in order to release the lid off the heart so the heart can really look upwards, which is where it's meant to look. Oh, unless you want to walk around on all fours or stoop. So, and from my legs bursting up the spine and out of this heart. It's lovely. Yeah, so really open-ended, you know, you're really planted here. So the more rooted and planted you are, the more your heart can actually open and the more energy can surge up you. So if you only have time for one exercise, then I would recommend this one. Because you can always bring turning into it. Yeah, you can just sort of let one side go a little bit before the other, and then just sort of wriggle yourself through it. And there's always an element of that anyway. You don't want it rigidly front. And just use the breath. Yeah, so you're breathing in here, and then out here, and then you're breathing in here, really expanding the chest, and then letting the breath out, the arms drop. So it's 2 breaths. In, out, out. And you'd like the feeling that you could just completely relax your diaphragm, and this movement would actually draw the air in and out of its own. So your arms are now sucking the air in. So my arms are expanding my chest, that's sucking the air in, and then my arms squeeze the air out. And that's quite interesting. Yeah, it feels like you're not breathing because the air is not rushing like it normally does when we use the diaphragm. Yeah, so to get the body breathing instead of the diaphragm, you really have to keep the airways open. The same way we're trying to keep the heart open. Yeah, so your whole being just becomes one thing. You're just possessed by this one breathing exercise. And it's not just your lungs that are breathing, your heart is breathing. So your heart is no longer just beating, it's breathing. Okay. Now let's just bring it back and just feel it. It's big and it's woken up. Yeah, so you're both the container, which requires this to be slightly back, but you're also the contained, which requires this to be underneath that big open heart. Yeah, so it just depends which part of your mind you look at it with. Okay, now let's just try just a little bit this one. This is really just a sort of concentrated version of the one we've just done. Yeah, here you can really feel that expansion in the chest, drawing the air in, and then you're driving it out. Yeah, so all of these exercises, we're just trying to sort of slow them down, trying to slow the breathing down, really. So Tse-la, you know, remember the Israeli girl that used to come? She was telling me that her Zen master in Japan, on one occasion, he marked his own breathing so that the other people meditating with him could try and emulate it. And they said, it's just no way, because each breath was like 1 minute. Yeah? There's no way they could extend their breath that much. But really, it's just relaxation. When you just let yourself go, then it will just naturally extend. So what shortens it is like a sort of anxious clamping of the chest, really. So you're breathing in, breathing in, breathing. And even when your arms stop, you can still keep the air coming in. Because it's like your mind can continue opening, you know, that you can get brighter and brighter inside. And again, that's just the heart again. And now let's just get the assistance of the belly. So this is another thing she said, is that he pulled up his robe so you could actually see his bare belly. And when he breathed out, he just pulled in and in and in with his belly. So his belly was really helping to get the last dregs of stale air out of his lungs. So it was very much sort of belly breathing. So here I finished the breath by really pulling the belly in, tightening the muscles to squeeze the diaphragm and the upwards and the lungs empty. And then as the belly goes out, it pulls the diaphragm down with it. And then here my contracting belly is pushing up and squeezing the air out. So so it's like real control of the belly muscles. So tensing them is actually, quite easy. We know but then it's just the slow release here. Because when we release the belly muscles, we tend to just let go and then they flop. And so just maintaining attention as we release them until the very end of the in-breath. So this is really tense, and then just slowly release that tension. So the belly can slowly extend out. And then at the end, it's just relaxes, sacroiliacs open, you're just more on the floor. So one of the problems with meditation is, it tends to be a little bit still, obviously. And so the energy tends to stagnate a little bit and you get constipated. And so just getting that movement in the gut region to keep it flowing, if you like, keep the shit flowing through. Pulling and then just slowly tighten. And then slowly release that. So they talk about a thin breath, which just means like really slow and silent. There should be no sense of hearing the air rushing in and out. Now let's just get into riding horse. So they're contained now. So just feeling the sacrum heavy. This is your center. So your dantian is your center of gravity. It's a beautiful concept, this idea that all of your weight is basically concentrated about a point. So in terms of my mass, I am effectively this. And so just feeling this pulling down to the ground like a vector, it's got an arrow pointing out of it down into the center of the earth. And every particle of me is moving into here gravitationally and out of there energetically. So it's a bit like a sun with all these rays coming out of it. But it's heavy and it's wanting to sort of just fall through your perineum and just smash into the ground. And then just feel the heart above that, cupping upwards, you know, like this lotus, emanating energy upwards, the way that this is pulling downwards, yeah. So this is there all the time. So subconsciously, we feel this need to pull ourselves together. So what we do, we pull the dantian and the heart towards each other. So that in order to counter this feeling of this constant separation from the earth, the gravity of the earth pulling me down and the vacuum of space lifting my spirit. Yeah. So, I mean, if they really do separate, then that's death, basically. So it's just a fear of death. And we tend to hold on here in the middle, between these 2 points of the solar plexus. Yeah, so we're sort of unnaturally pulling these two towards each other. And that'll just put a natural cap on the heart, and it will stop you from making a proper connection with the ground. And so it feels like the dantian is sort of, it's like sort of one of those stars that's collapsing into like a black hole. It's constantly pulling into itself. And the heart is like the opposite. The heart is sort of expanding all the time. And now let's just jogging on the spot, but trying to stay off the heels. So just working from the front of the foot a bit. And just feel, as you go into the foot, there's like a recoil up the body. If you go down with the heel, then it's a bit of a bang. It's a bit violent. So if you go down with the front of the foot, and so we're just generating this sort of bouncy energy, this lift up the body that is a consequence of my heaviness and the springiness in my feet and my legs. It's like a buoyancy. We want the heart to be buoyant. Yeah, so once you've got it going, then just bring this slightly forwards. So you really get maximum uplift from the feet. Yeah, so as you lift the foot, let the toes expand, and as you put the foot down, clench with them a little bit. So you're basically doing what the cat does, you know, when it makes puddings, when it's happy. So your foot is clenching a little bit, it's gripping the ground, it's yielding, It's drawing the ground up into it. And just let it lighten you up. It's playful. It's giggly. Something you could do with your little kids. And they'll do it much better than you. And then you can alternate, you can just change the speed a bit. It's always a good idea. As soon as a rhythm becomes established, it tends to produce a rut. So just feel your pendulous parts. Your balls and your tips should be sort of. And then just like really slow. Ooh. Riding horse again. Yeah, so we've got this central stillness, but now because of what we've just done, we've also got this full and empty, this swimming from side to side. Yeah. Yeah, it's the way of practice, really. You do lots of little exercises to wake up all the different components. And then you just feel them all playing together. Okay. And now let's just, so figure of 8 in order to get into the ward off. So what we'd normally do is do this. So we're used to doing this, but that again, it neglects the spine. So just using the hand, what I want to do is bring energy up this leg, up my spine, across the shoulder and into the arm. So I just reach down to this foot and I just sneak the energy up the spine, across the shoulder, which requires this sort of action. Yeah. And then just turn this over and that will wriggle that energy up into the shoulder, down into the hand. Yeah. So 1, 2, and 3. Yeah. So the spine is quite tight. It's quite narrow until you get to the shoulder, and then there's a sudden opening to get it to go down the arm. So 1, 2, and 2. Yeah, so for me, it's really important to get the spine, this part of the spine, the bit between my sacrum and my heart, expanding, because that will help the solar plexus region sort of dissolve, you know, your anger and your resentment. And then you can really just let your body and your spirit separate, your body and your heart. Yeah, so they say, you know, in spiritual work, you're simply training for that moment of death, you know, the final letting go. Yeah, so you're wriggling up this tight tunnel of the spine, and then here, ooh, something just sort of gushes out because it leaps across from that narrowness into the expanse of the shoulders. It's a beautiful feeling. You just have to be careful it doesn't bring you up out of your legs. Yeah, 1, 2. And then let's just try the other ones. 1, 2. So you're just dredging energy from your full leg to the sacrum, up the spine, across to the opposite shoulder and arm. So when you're doing the form, you know, whenever you bring your arm up into ward off, you'd like an element of this. So it's not just a lifting arm, it's got this in it, yeah? So you need to do a few waist turns to sort of wriggle it up. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And now let's just try a bit of this both together. Yeah, so you can just choose where the middle of the figure of 8, you know, the crossover in the middle, where that is, yeah. So you could have it in the heart, or you could have it in like the solar plexus. So you're just trying to just break something up that resides naturally there. Yeah, so when something releases in the solar plexus region, you'll feel a sinking down the spine, and you'll feel a rising up the spine. Ooh. Ooh. Okay, so now just back into riding horse. Okay. And now let's just work the feet a little bit. So just by bringing your heels up. Yeah. So you just want to get, again, sacrum heavy, and then just rock back and feel the stability and the safety, security that comes as you put the heel down. Yeah. So when you root through the heel, it tends to bring you into this sort of almost like a slumbering relaxation, a safety. And then when you come off the heel, as long as you don't let the body rise up, it will actually bring the spirit up inside. So your eyebrows will sort of lift a little. You have to be really vigilant to stop yourself from falling because you get a bit wobbly. And so you've sacrificed the security of the heels for the spirit of the toes, yeah. And then just slowly just bring the heels back down and just rock back into them. And just feel it. You just come back to your body. It's like you just come back to normality. I mean, it's nice, but it's without the spirit, yeah. And then just sinking down and coming forwards and coming off the heels, and just feel it. You become a different creature. Yeah? You're alive, you're buzzing. You don't have the same sense of your body as being a reassuring, comfortable place to be. It's now shaking and trembling and about to fall over. And you're very aware of this spark inside that's quite separate from the body it's animating. And then just back. And again, just ooh. So you root, you can feel the roots going down through the heel and extending into the ground. Yeah, so just feel that. It's like a really much slower frequency. It's got a slowness of like a tree. Think how slow a tree is. Yeah? And then when I come forwards onto the front of the foot, I'm much more like an animal that's sort of like a little mouse that's sort of skitty, or like a squirrel. Yeah, so my frequency is really increased because spirit has got a really high frequency. Yeah. Wow. And then just slowly back, just feel it, the heels are just rooting. Yeah, so what we'd like to be able to do is extend our range. So when you're in the heels and you're just feeling that slowness, really feel the slowness, yeah, for which you'd have to stand quite a long time. It's like you're when you're meditating, you're collecting frequencies, if you like. Yeah. So the longer you stay in position, the longer the wavelength of the frequencies you're collecting. Yeah. If I can stay like this a long time, then these really deep frequencies which are in the earth can rumble up into me. And then when I come onto the front of the foot, it all starts fizzing and buzzing. And then I want this sense that there are frequencies so high, I just can barely sense them, but there's like a bzzz that I can start collecting. So you're getting, your range is being drawn out, is extending. Because the range of the human universe is really very limited. So again, into the heel and just feel the earth. You're extending into it, and the earth through the floor, whatever floor you're on, doesn't matter where it is, it could be an aeroplane. It's rumbling up into you. Yeah. And then when I come onto the toes, there's like a bzzz going on around here. It's like I've got these antennae of an insect that's really picking up all this noise. There may be important messages in there. And then just rocking back again. Just feel that. Whoa. It's a lovely feeling, when you come back into those slow frequencies, you come back into the body. Think of the resonant frequency of your body. It's going to be quite slow. Yeah. And then one more, just sinking down. So you really want, coming onto the toe should be a real sinking. And just making, because what tends to happen when you bring the heels up, it tends to stick the bum out. Yeah? So just really let the sacrum drop through that. And you can almost feel like a sort of buzz, like a mist, a fizzy mist that's rising from you, all over you, from your feet, your legs, your shoulders, your head, your arms. And then just back. Feel the heels. Ooh. Yeah, so it's a relief to come off the toes because it hurts the legs being on the toes, but it's not just that relief of leaving the world of spirit. There's something very comforting and nourishing. Mothering, yeah? So the earth is the great mother. And then now let's just bring it back to attention, just feeling the heels. They should feel like these soft pads, and when you put your weight into it, they just spread a little bit, like they're sort of spongy or rubbery. Yeah. And then just feel both of those things. So the heel, so imagine you're standing on wet sand, then your heels would go down further than the front of the foot because your weight is collecting into the heels. That's connecting to the earth and these long frequencies. And now just curl the toes down like this, so like you're gripping the ground with your toes, because all you have to do really is just push the toes down and you'll start collecting these higher frequencies as well. Yeah, remember Fourier transforms? Takes me back. Yeah, this idea that everything is just an infinite series of frequencies, of higher and higher frequencies. Yeah. So there will be a fundamental, there will be a base frequency, but it's not me, because I'm just part of this big system. It's the earth. Yeah. So this is, this is what Lawrence meant when he meant, getting reconnecting to the cosmos. So rooting isn't just having like a sort of planted feet. It's actually really channeling these frequencies. So from the earth through the legs, but then from the heavens. So for the Chinese, the heavens is anything that's above the surface of the earth. So this is the heavens here, but also that up there. So there's all these frequencies there. That's just, so your spine is like an antenna. So the antenna has to be really sort of true, which means really dealing with the spine, really just feeling those parts of the spine where there's a tightness, like a knot, and just working on it. And just remember, when you work on something, it always makes it worse to start with. Yeah. Especially when the ego is involved, because the ego will always fight back. The ego would rather that you died than for it to relinquish any control. So the ego is murderous, so you have to be careful. Yeah, so what do we use to combat, to try and, deal with these tensions? We use compassion. We just look at it with understanding and a smile and just let it take its time. Yeah, that's all we can do. Yeah, so you're sinking into the heels. It's really long, and each toe is like a little maggot. It's sort of wriggling, trying to get into the ground. Okay, great. Let's finish.